You can buy a house in America right now for less than a used pickup truck, not a shed, not a timeshare with mold issues. A real actual house with walls, a roof, and neighbors who will absolutely know your business by Tuesday, while everyone else is drowning in six-figure down payments and mortgage rates that feel personally offensive. There are towns quietly sitting on the map with home prices so low your bank will ask if you misplaced a zero. But here's what nobody tells you. Every single one of these towns has a catch. Sometimes it's the smell. Sometimes it's the silence. Sometimes it's the fact that the nearest Starbucks is a spiritual journey, not a commute. We're counting down 15 US. Towns where the price tag looks like a scam, and every single one comes with a wait, seriously? Moment. One town on this list has a median home price lower than a luxury handbag. Another is so quiet, residents report naming the local stray cats just to feel social. And trust me, you are not ready for number one. Like this video so the algorithm doesn't send you to a $4,000 a month studio in San Francisco. Subscribe because your zip code might be your biggest financial mistake. And this channel is basically your escape hatch. This isn't surface level. This is the part most people miss. Number 12, Pritchard, Alabama in Pritchard, Alabama. You can buy a house for under $60,000, and you will have found one of the most overlooked deals within driving distance of a major American city. Pritchard sits directly adjacent to Mobile, Alabama, a city with a real port, real industry, real cultural history, and real restaurant options. Pritchard gets the geography without the price tag, which is either brilliant positioning or a reflection of challenges that need acknowledging. Both things are simultaneously true. Median home price around $57,000. Cost of living 27% below the national average. Rent around $600 a month. And mobile is right there. Your job market, your grocery options, your evening plans, all within a short commute. The honest part, Pritchard has significant challenges. It's one of the lowest income municipalities in Alabama. Infrastructure has been strained for years. Crime rates are elevated. The city famously became one of the few in American history to temporarily stop paying pension checks. A crisis that reflects deeper structural financial issues that are ongoing. But the proximity to mobile changes the calculus in interesting ways. You get small-town pricing with genuine city access. And Mobile itself is an underrated Gulf Coast city with a port economy, growing healthcare sector, and the kind of food culture, Gulf seafood, Creole influence, legendary local spots, that you simply cannot overstate. One resident described it simply: I work in Mobile, shop in Mobile, eat out in Mobile. I just sleep in a house I actually own. Alabama summer. Coastal humidity. The kind of air that sits on you. Gulf Coast thunderstorms that are spectacular and brief, and absolutely not messing around. Mosquitoes that have formed their own local government. Picture this: a short drive to the Gulf, Mobile Bay shimmering in the distance. You come home to a house in your name, bought for the price of a vehicle, an estate where the seafood alone is worth the move. It takes research, it takes eyes open, but the geography is legitimately compelling. Gulf Coast budget move or too much risk? Tell me below. And if Pritchard's complicated math intrigued you, the next one is less complicated and considerably more unexpected. Number 11, Muncie, Indiana. In Muncie, Indiana, you can buy a solid house for under $100,000 and live in a place that sociologists have studied for a century as the most average American city that exists. Make of that what you will. Muncie was famously chosen in the 1920s as the subject of the landmark Middletown sociological studies. Researchers who wanted to understand typical American life picked Muncie specifically because it was so representatively, measurably, middle of everything. It's the most studied average town in the country. There's a whole academic field based on this place. Median home price around $95,000. Cost of living 18% below the national average. Rent around $750 for a two-bedroom. Ball State University sits in the middle of it, which gives the town a pulse that pure Rust Belt cities sometimes lose. The catches are familiar by now. Population declining slowly. Manufacturing jobs thinned out decades ago. Downtown is a mixed picture. Some genuine revival energy, some vacancy that hasn't figured out its next act. Crime sits slightly above national average. And without the university, the social scene would be considerably quieter. But Ball State brings something real. Events, culture, an engaged community, restaurants that actually try. Coffee shops that are open past 2 in the afternoon. The university ecosystem softens a lot of the edges that similar-sized Midwest cities have. One remote worker who relocated from Chicago said, I paid $87,000 for a 3-bedroom with a garage. My commute is from my bedroom to my home office. I haven't once regretted it, and I do not want anyone from Chicago to know. Indiana weather offers all 4 seasons with a particular Midwest enthusiasm of each one being slightly more extreme than necessary. Summer's humid and hot, winter's gray and stubborn, spring a genuine relief. Fall legitimately gorgeous. Picture this. University town at dusk, students on bikes, a bookstore with lights on. You park in front of your own house. Your house on a quiet street, and the mortgage is smaller than your old rent by a factor that should be illegal. Middle of everything. Price of almost nothing. Middletown made or too average for me. Drop it below. Number 10, Gary. In Gary, Indiana, you can buy a house for under $40,000. And before you say anything, yes, that Gary. And yes, people actually live there, and some of them are doing something genuinely interesting. Gary is perhaps the most dramatic example of American industrial collapse in the country. Once a thriving steel city of 180,000 people, built almost from scratch by U.S. Steel in 1906, named after the company's chairman, home of the Jackson 5. Now, a city of under 70,000 with some of the lowest home prices in the continental United States, and a reputation that has been doing most of the talking for decades. Median home price around $38,000. Yes, $38,000. Cost of living nearly 35% below the national average, 20 minutes from downtown Chicago by train. Let's be honest, Gary has serious challenges. Violent crime rates rank among the highest in the country. Large sections of the city have significant vacancy and abandonment. Infrastructure and city services have been strained for years. This is not a place to move to casually or without thorough research by neighborhood. But here is the thing that gets quietly buried under the reputation. Gary has a commuter rail line, the South Shore, that puts you in downtown Chicago in under 30 minutes. There are people who have done the math and moved to Gary specifically to access Chicago salaries on Gary prices. There are artists, urban homesteaders, developers who looked at the bones of this city and saw something that could be rebuilt. A Chicago teacher who bought in Gary posted, "I take the train to work every morning. I own a house. My colleagues who rent studios in Logan Square look at me like I've solved something." The roads in Gary are a conversation in their own right. Infrastructure has been a challenge for decades. You will learn patience, or you will learn alternate routes, possibly both simultaneously. Picture this. You're on the South Shore train, coffee in hand, watching Chicago's skyline appear on the horizon. 20 minutes later, you're at your house, your own house. That costs $38,000. The math is outrageous. The research required is real. The opportunity, if you do it right, is unlike almost anywhere else in America. Chicago adjacent bet or not touching it, comments below. And if Gary felt like the most extreme value proposition so far, the next town proves that cheap and charming can actually coexist without requiring a PhD in urban risk assessment. Number 9, Danville, Virginia. In Danville, Virginia, you can buy a house for under $120,000 and land in a town that is quietly, genuinely, in the middle of something interesting, without having figured out it needs to tell anyone yet. Danville sits in southern Virginia, right on the North Carolina border, straddling the Dan River like it's been there forever, which it has. It was the last capital of the Confederacy for 8 days in 1865, which is either a fascinating historical footnote or the weirdest claim to fame in Virginia, depending on your tolerance for that particular flavor of history. Median home price around $115,000. Cost of living 20% below the national average, rent around $750 to $850 a month. And something is happening here that hasn't been fully announced yet. Danville has been intentionally investing in its riverfront, its downtown, and its appeal to remote workers. A strategy that is actually showing early results. New restaurants, renovated mill buildings turned into lofts, a craft beer scene that appeared somewhat suddenly and has been well received, a river district that is genuinely walkable and genuinely good-looking. Crime is present above national average, something to factor in by neighborhood. The job market historically leaned on tobacco and textiles, both of which declined significantly, meaning the town is actively in economic reinvention mode, rather than coasting on existing industry. One remote worker who relocated from Northern Virginia said, "I left a $2,400 a month apartment for a 3-bedroom house with a yard for $950 in mortgage. I have a home office, a garden, and money left over at the end of the month. I didn't know that was still possible." Virginia's seasons here are genuinely pleasant by national standards. Summer's warm but not apocalyptic. Winter's mild compared to anything north of the Mason-Dixon. Fall is legitimately beautiful. Spring smells like something out of a real estate commercial. Picture this. A renovated mill building turned restaurant on the Dan River. Good food, reasonable prices, string lights over the water. You walk home to a house on a quiet street that you own and can actually afford, in a town that is betting on itself and showing early signs of being right. Danville discovery or still waiting to see? Tell me in the comments. Number 8, Beaumont, Texas. In Beaumont, Texas, you can buy a house for under $130,000 and enter a city that smells faintly of the oil industry, argues constantly about barbecue, and will absolutely not admit it needs your validation. Beaumont sits in southeast Texas, the Golden Triangle region, close enough to Louisiana that the food starts arguing about jurisdiction. It's a port city, an oil city, a rice and crawfish city. It has the particular confidence of a place that fed America's industrial needs for a century and hasn't felt the need to apologize for being unglamorous about it. Median home price around $125,000. Cost of living 17% below the national average. Rent around $900 for a 2-bedroom. Job market anchored in petrochemicals, healthcare, and the Port of Beaumont, which is more economically significant than most people outside Southeast Texas realize. The complications are present. Beaumont's violent crime rate tracks above national average, not at the extreme end, but worth knowing by neighborhood. And flooding is a genuine and recurring concern. Southeast Texas geography combined with hurricane proximity means flood insurance is a real line item in the household budget, not a technicality. What nobody tells you is Beaumont has some of the best Cajun and Texas barbecue crossover food in the country, which sounds like a minor point until you've eaten there. It is not a minor point. A relocating engineer from Houston said, "Same industry, same job, a third of the housing cost. I eat better, commute less, and own a house with a garage." Houston can keep the traffic. Southeast Texas heat is something you experience with your whole body. Humidity from the Gulf sitting on everything from May through October. The kind of weather where your car AC isn't a comfort feature, it's life support. And when a storm system builds in the Gulf, Beaumont residents watch the forecast with the focused attention of people who have been through this before. Picture this, a Friday evening, someone's got a crawfish boil going, the smell of Old Bay, and something on the smoker drifting across the backyard. Your house, your paid-for, mortgaged, actually yours house, sits on a quiet street in a city that has never once cared what the coasts think of it. Golden Triangle Bolivar, or flood risk no thanks. You know what to do. Number 7, Macon, Georgia. In Macon, Georgia, you can buy a house for under $120,000, land in the middle of a legitimate music history destination, and still confuse yourself daily about how nobody else is talking about this. Macon is the Allman Brothers. Macon is Little Richard. Macon is Otis Redding. This city produced more genuinely significant American music than places 10 times its size and has a Hall of Fame, a museum trail, and a live music scene that still carries the weight of all that legacy. The culture here is real and earned. Median home price around $115,000. Cost of living 21% below the national average. Rent around $800 a month for a 2-bedroom in a city that has genuine urban bones. Big old Victorians, craftsman bungalows, antebellum architecture, the kind of housing stock that stops people cold. The honest picture. Macon has crime challenges, particularly in certain parts of the city. Violent crime is above national average. The downtown, while improving, and it genuinely is improving, still has vacancy mixed in with its revival. Job market centered on healthcare, education, manufacturing, and a growing logistics sector given the city's position on major transportation corridors. But Macon's revival is more real than most. The Cherry Blossom Festival brings 300,000 people annually to a city of 150,000. The investment in downtown arts and entertainment is visible and ongoing, and the houses, for the price, are extraordinary. One musician who relocated from Atlanta said, "I can actually afford to be an artist here. I own a house. I have a studio. In Atlanta, I was splitting a 1-bedroom. Macon gave me my creative life back." Georgia summers in Macon are full commitment. Humid, hot, and enthusiastic about it. The kind of summer that turns your car into a convection oven and makes air conditioning feel like an intimate relationship. But Georgia falls and springs are gorgeous enough to balance the books. Picture this, a Sunday afternoon. Someone somewhere is playing something that could be rock or could be soul or is probably both simultaneously. You're on the porch of a Victorian that cost you $110,000. Cherry trees lining the street, music in the air, and the legend of the Allman Brothers echoing off buildings they actually played in. Music City budget move or too much city risk, drop it below. Number 6, Vicksburg, Mississippi. In Vicksburg, Mississippi, you can buy a house for under $100,000, sit on the bluffs above the Mississippi River, and occupy one of the most historically layered pieces of American geography on the continent. Vicksburg is the Civil War, the siege that lasted 47 days, the campaign grant called the Key to the Confederacy, the national military park that wraps around the city like a living history textbook. You don't just live near the history here, you live inside it. Your neighbor's backyard might contain earthworks. Your commute might pass a monument every morning. Median home price around $97,000. Cost of living 26% below the national average. Rent around $700 a month for a 2-bedroom in a city where the architecture is antebellum and the sunsets over the river are objectively unfair. The hard reality, Mississippi is Mississippi. Vicksburg has elevated crime rates. Infrastructure challenges are real. Poverty rates are significant. Job market is limited. Healthcare, tourism, gaming on the river, and some manufacturing. But economic mobility requires creativity or commuting to Jackson. What Vicksburg has that almost nowhere at this price point can offer: genuine architectural beauty, extraordinary historical significance, and a river view that belonged on postcards long before postcards existed. One history teacher who bought a Greek revival house for $85,000 said, "I live in a home that predates the Civil War. My students cannot believe where I live. My mortgage payment is $430 a month. Neither can I." Mississippi summers are a commitment of heat and humidity at levels that require planning. The river brings weather that moves fast, and the quiet of Vicksburg at night, sitting above the Mississippi, is either deeply peaceful or deeply haunting, depending entirely on your relationship with history. Picture this. Sunset over the Mississippi River from Vicksburg's bluffs, the water wide and brown and ancient. A Greek revival house behind you that you own for less than most people's annual rent. History under every surface. Beauty that doesn't charge extra. It asks something of you. Most places this real do. River Bluff Legacy or Mississippi No? Tell me below. Number 5. Terre Haute, Indiana. In Terre Haute, Indiana, you can buy a solid house for under $95,000 and enter a college town with Big Ten energy, surprisingly good food, and a reputation that it's slowly, deliberately working to rewrite. Terre Haute sits on the Wabash River in western Indiana, home to Indiana State University, Larry Bird School, which locals will mention within minutes of meeting you, not because they're obsessed, but because they understand it's the fastest way to give you a cultural reference point. The university gives the town a backbone that similar-sized Midwest cities sometimes lack. Median home price around $90,000. Cost of living 19% below the national average. Rent around $700 to $800 a month. Job market anchored in healthcare, education, retail distribution, and manufacturing. Not explosive, but functional and present. The real talk. Terre Haute has crime rates above the national average, particularly property crime. Downtown is a work in progress, genuine investment happening alongside genuine vacancy. And being in western Indiana means you are equidistant from Indianapolis and St. Louis in a way that's either a perk or an admission that you need options. But Indiana State brings youth, energy, cultural programming, and the particular economic stability that a mid-sized university provides to a city. There are good restaurants. There is a food scene that would surprise you. There's a park system along the river that is legitimately lovely. A first-generation homebuyer who grew up nearby said, "I bought a house at 26 years old. Nobody in my family believed it was possible. It was $87,000. I have a garage. It's mine." Indiana weather is all 4 seasons with full commitment to each one. Winters cold and gray and long. Summers warm and humid. Spring and fall both beautiful enough to make you briefly forgive everything winter did. Picture this. A college football Saturday. The town actually alive. It's hue colors everywhere. You walk back to your house, 2 miles from campus, park in your own driveway, and make something in a kitchen you own. In a country where homeownership has started to feel like something that happens to other people, Terre Haute is still offering it at a price that feels from another time. Wabash Valley owner or need a bigger city? Comments below. Number 4, Shreveport, Louisiana. In Shreveport, Louisiana, you can buy a house for under $130,000 and land in a city that is equal parts complicated, fascinating, and incapable of making bad food. Shreveport sits in northwest Louisiana on the Red River, a border city in feel if not in geography, sitting closer to Dallas and Little Rock than to New Orleans, with a culture that pulls from all directions and settles into something distinctly its own. It's a city of casinos, oil money legacy, a surprisingly deep music history, and a film industry presence that arrived when Louisiana tax incentives made it the Hollywood South. Median home price around $125,000, cost of living 20% below the national average, rent around $850 for a 2-bedroom. Job market, healthcare, gaming, oil and gas, and a film and television production sector that has brought real employment, crew production logistics to the area. The honest side, Shreveport's violent crime rate is above national average and has been a persistent civic challenge. City finances have been strained. Some neighborhoods carry the weight of long-term disinvestment. This is not a blind purchase situation. Research by zip code matters here more than the average. What Shreveport has: genuine culture, the Red River, an arts community with real substance, food that hits every single time, and a size that feels manageable without feeling small. The film industry presence means there are creative professionals here, writers, directors, crew, who moved for work and stayed for the price of living. One production coordinator from Los Angeles said, "I moved here for a project. I bought a house during the first month. The project ended. I didn't leave. I own a 4-bedroom with a carport." Los Angeles is a different planet. Louisiana heat in Shreveport has its own personality. Drier than the coast, but still serious. Summers long and hot with the certainty of people who've been doing this forever. And the storms that roll through are not suggestions. Picture this: a warm evening on the Red River. Good food, cold drink, live music drifting from somewhere with an open door. You drive home to a house you own, in a city that has never once tried to be anything other than exactly what it is. Flawed, flavorful, affordable, real. Red River Realist or Louisiana Risk No Thanks? Drop it below. Number 3, Huntington, West Virginia. In Huntington, West Virginia, you can buy a house for under $85,000 and live in a river city that has been through things most American towns haven't survived and is still here, stubbornly, specifically here. Huntington sits where West Virginia meets Kentucky and Ohio at the Ohio River. Marshall University anchors it academically and athletically. The town still carries the weight of the 1970 plane crash that killed 75 members of the Marshall football program. And the word "We Are Marshall" means something visceral here. You'll understand it within a week. Median home price around $80,000. Cost of living 27% below the national average. rent around $650 to $750 a month. Marshall University, as with other university towns on this list, provides economic and cultural stability that the surrounding region doesn't always have. The hard truth is, Huntington became one of the cities most associated with the opioid crisis in national reporting. The numbers were genuinely devastating in the mid-2010s. The city has worked through this openly and with real community effort. Recovery infrastructure is present and engaged. The story is more complicated now than the headlines from 5 years ago suggest, but it is part of the honest picture of this place. Crime is elevated. Job market outside the university and healthcare is limited. West Virginia's broadband challenges apply here too. And the hills mean that every winter storm requires a different calculation than flat state living. What Huntington has: river beauty, university culture, people with a specific unshakable solidarity, food that over-delivers, and houses with actual character at prices that feel borrowed from a different era. A social worker who moved from Columbus said, "I came here for work that needed doing. I bought a house the first year. I've been here 6 years. The people here have been through things, and they're still standing, and they'll outlast most places I've ever been." Picture this: the Ohio River at dusk, wide and quiet, a city on its bank that has survived things and is still going. A house behind you that costs $78,000 and has a front porch wide enough to actually use. It asks something of you. This whole list has asked something. Thundering herd holdout, or too heavy for me. You know where the comments are. Number 2, East St. Louis, Illinois. In East St. Louis, you can buy a house for under $30,000. And before the comments fill up, yes, that comes with everything you think it comes with. And also a few things you didn't expect. East St. Louis sits directly across the Mississippi from St. Louis, Missouri, and Illinois, separated by a river and separated by a world of economic disparity. The Gateway Arch is visible from the street. Downtown St. Louis is literally right there. And a house costs less than a used car. Median home price around $28,000. Cost of living among the lowest of any city in the country. Vacancy rates among the highest. The honest picture, fully and without softening: East St. Louis has one of the highest violent crime rates in the United States. Infrastructure is severely strained. Poverty rates are among the highest in Illinois. This is a city that has been let down structurally and systematically for decades, and the data reflects every year of that. And yet, because there is always something, the geography is undeniable. Metro East Illinois, directly adjacent to a major American city with a skyline view that costs nothing, and homes that cost almost nothing. There are community organizations working here with genuine commitment. There are homeowners who chose this specifically because they saw something worth fighting for. This entry isn't a recommendation, it's a full picture. One community organizer who bought and renovated a house said, "This city has been written off by everyone with options. I had options. I chose this because someone had to stay, and staying means owning, not renting someone else's investment." Picture this: the Gateway Arch across the river, the Mississippi wide and silver in the morning. A house that cost $25,000. A city that has been through more than most and is still, technically, on the map. What you do with that information is yours to decide. Seen enough to stay, or honestly, no judgment either way. These things are complicated. Number 1, Detroit, Michigan. No other city in America tells the story of cheap real estate with more complexity, more contradiction, and more genuine possibility in the same breath. You can still buy a house in Detroit for under $5,000 in certain neighborhoods. You can buy a renovated home in a stabilizing block for $60,000. You can buy a downtown loft in a city that now has Google, Microsoft, and Stellantis offices within walking distance. The range is the point. Detroit isn't one thing, it never was. It was a city of 1.8 million people. Those people left incrementally over 60 years for reasons that include racism, disinvestment, deindustrialization, and a municipal bankruptcy in 2013 that was the largest in American history. Understanding why Detroit is cheap requires understanding all of that, not just the price tag. Median home price overall, around $60,000 to $80,000 depending on the neighborhood. Cost of living nearly 30% below the national average. Crime still elevated, some neighborhoods significantly so, others genuinely stabilizing. Job market actively growing in tech, mobility, and healthcare in a way that wasn't true 10 years ago. What's happening in Detroit right now is complicated and real and worth watching. The downtown and midtown corridors are genuinely transformed. Investment is real. Young people are moving in with the specific energy of people who want to be part of something being built rather than something already finished. What hasn't caught up: many residential neighborhoods still carry the weight of decades of disinvestment. Services can be uneven, schools remain a challenge. The gap between the rebuilt downtown and the rest of the city is wide, and honest people acknowledge it. A graphic designer who bought a house in Detroit for $12,000 and spent $40,000 renovating it said, "I own a home in a major American city with a tech economy, a world-class music history, and a food scene that finally figured itself out. I got in before the rest of the country noticed. That window might still be open, but it's closing." Detroit drivers are, as previously documented, operating under a separate set of agreements from the rest of the country. The potholes on I-94 are a civic tradition at this point. And the seasons, Michigan winters are a full personality commitment. Picture this. You buy a house in Detroit for $45,000, you renovate it. You're 20 minutes from a company that pays competitive salaries. You're in a city with the bones of something enormous that was built and came apart and is being built again. Slower this time, by people who chose it deliberately. The price is real, the risk is real. The opportunity, if you do the work, choose the neighborhood carefully, understand what you're entering, is unlike almost anywhere else in the country. Detroit isn't the cheapest house on this list. It's the most complicated story, and that's exactly why it's number one. Motor City Believer, or tell me why not. I'll read every single one. So there it is. Towns where the price tag looks like a typo, and every single one comes with something to think about. Some of these are genuine hidden opportunities. Some require serious research before you put a dollar down. And some are the kind of complicated that no 30-second take can do justice to. But here's what every single entry on this list has in common. Real people live there. Real people bought homes there. Real people made the math work and built something. The American dream of homeownership isn't dead. It's just moved somewhere your GPS might argue with. If this video made you look up a city you'd never considered, that's the whole point. Like it so the algorithm learns what you're about. Subscribe because we're doing this again. Deeper, weirder, more specific. And drop your city in the comments. The one everyone sleeps on. The deal nobody's talking about. I'll see you in the next one.